Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Unveiling Paradise podcast. Hi, Joe.
How are you doing, Tessa?
I'm great. How are you?
I am amazing. I am so excited for our show.
So today, I'm very excited to welcome a dear friend, Stuart Kotake. He is the Director of Catering and Sales for the Waikiki Collection. Welcome, Stuart, to the show.
Thank you, Tessa. This is exciting. Hi, Joseph.
Hey.
We're so excited to have you here. I have a quick question.
Sure.
I want you to obviously introduce yourself and kind of talk about, who you are, why we want you here, but you work for the Marriott.
Yes.
Sort of. But I'm confused. Can you give us a little more about that, please?
Sure. Marriott actually is our management company, and they have over 30 different brands. We just happen to be very fortunate to have 3 of those brands in our hotel collection in Waikiki. So we do have a Westin, which is the Moana, the Luxury Collection, which is the Royal Hawaiian, and then 2 Sheratons, which is the Princess Kaiulani and the Sheraton Waikiki. And those are Marriott brands. And those are the hotels that I represent.
And so you have a long time wealth of knowledge about weddings, wedding events. Give us a little bit of a background about what your actual role has been with weddings.
I think I didn't actively go out to learn about weddings or be a part of this community. But when you do events and when you are in the world of hospitality, weddings is such a large portion of that. You can't help but either avoid it or become a part of it.
Right.
I gift the gab. I love meeting people. I think I enjoy understanding where they're from, where they're going. And that's actually kind of a metaphor or a pathway or a journey for what we do in weddings. Right. We just happen to be along the way helping them find their destiny. And that's just how it kind of unraveled or came together, however you want to look at it. So doing events for over 30 years has been my history. Grew up here in Hawaii, but went away and fortunate, worked at Walt Disney World, did fairy tale weddings for them. Really a very unique way of presenting memories and wishes. And then coming back home to Hawaii and finding out I grew up in a place that's very similar to a theme park. People people save all their lives to come here.
That's true.
Right? Yep. And that our place is built with natural beauty. So for us to be here and be part of that, it wasn't really a hard transition. And so it's been 30 years doing it. I think it's a part of you and you know it and you don't fight it. You embrace it. And then you figure out, how do you live in this box? How do you figure it out? And that's kind of how it unfolded.
So Stuart, as the Director of Catering and Sales, I know that you have been a long-term proponent of the hotel's vendor list. And we want to take a deep dive into this. One of the things we talk about a lot on our show is the question of, do you work with a local vendor if you're doing a destination wedding, or do you fly in your vendor? Okay. And so this is what we want to pick your brain. We have so much to talk about.
And beyond that, right? We also want to talk about a preferred vendor list. What does that look like when you're working with local vendors and when you're working at specific venues, working off a vendor list to get the best experience for your wedding day. So let's get started. Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred & Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to our show. We're so excited to get in and start talking with Stuart about using a vendor list to maximize your wedding day. As always, I have overthought this, and now I have a game.
Okay.
So, can we play a game, Stuart?
Of course.
Joe,
Your games are always fun. So, yeah.
Do you want to play too?
Can I play as well? No.
Okay, yeah.
I think this
No, you can
is
both
Stuart's
play.
show tonight.
You're okay, I'm going to let you answer if you want to. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay, so
Let's do it.
everybody gets to play. So, Stuart, this game is Have You Ever? And I love a Have You Ever because I think sometimes they get a little divisive, a little crazy. Are you ready?
Yes, of
I'm a little
course.
scared because last time I played Have You Ever, I got in trouble.
You got in trouble. You're always in trouble.
Please don't get me fired. Don't get me fired.
Okay, so you have to answer honestly and you have to answer quickly.
Okay.
That's what I like. Okay, have you ever kicked a wedding vendor off your properties?
Yes.
Woo! Have you ever had to break up a fight between two vendors?
Yes.
Oh my God. Have you ever seen a wedding cake fall or collapse before the cake cutting?
Yes.
Oh my God. Have you ever had to redo a bouquet, boutonniere, centerpiece because the flowers fell apart?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Have you ever experienced a photographer, not Joe, miss the big
Thank you.
kiss after the ceremony?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And okay, last question. Have you ever had an officiant show up late or drunk?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, both so drunk and late, or
Those are two different times, but yes and yes.
And I think that's crazy. So again, I know this was a very quick game. Joe, you didn't answer.
I didn't have it. Well, I think
You
you
got
know what?
overwhelmed listening to
Yeah,
Stuart.
yeah. I'm like, tell me the
Oh, you know
dirt.
what? I didn't even have to wait, right? Yes. Yes.
Which
I
is
want to hear all the
amazing.
dirt, though. That's what I really want to hear. Like who, when, where, why. Let me hear it. But we won't get into that.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that a lot of these vendors were vendors that maybe weren't like on the preferred vendor list or weren't vetted by the hotel or were the DIY family or friends who thought they could officiate the wedding, and you hired the uncle who you know has
Absolutely.
a drinking problem.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we got to be prepared for everything. And I think the stakes get higher when there are people that we don't know, or that there has been a very strong request to use someone or do something that we inherently know in our DNA that this has got bad written all over it. And, you know, we just have that sixth sense where we've been down this path before. And so, you know, playing that game just brings those forward. Like, you got to remember that happened before. And these are the tall tale signs. But that comes because it's something that we didn't vet.
Right,
It's
right,
coming
right.
from a place that we're not familiar. And that's it.
And this is a great transition, I think. You know, before we start talking about the benefits of working with a vendor list or working with professionals or working with people that we prefer to work with, I want to take a step back, Stuart, and maybe you can kind of start by explaining to us what is a preferred vendor list? Why do venues have them? Like, what's the purpose of them? Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I use this as an example a lot of times talking to our couples. And I also use it to share with our actual associates who I work with. I use the analogy of a team. If you think of a basketball team, they actually have star players. They've got great skills. They celebrities in themselves because their talent is beyond what we expect. That's what you want in the players in your wedding. You want them to bring those skills and be the star and bring that to their event. But you need them to play together as a great team.
Mhm.
You don't win. You don't succeed unless you do it as a team. A preferred vendor list are people who work well together, that they actually bring those skills, that talent individually, but they're able to mesh well with the hotel operations, with the venue, and actually side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the other vendors. And I think that curating a list of preferred vendors is so important because you're looking around that circle and there's this unwritten language, this dance that we perform for a wedding That only comes because you vetted it, that they're preferred, and you know their skills, they know yours, and you get into that rhythm. That's what makes a great team. That's why you win.
I love that so much. We talk about this all the time. Wedding magic happens when all of those vendors come together, they're working collaboratively. How do you do that? Like, that's always the $1 million question. How do you actually put that team together?
Correct. And you're going to get 70 to 80% there because you've actually trusted that preferred list wasn't just because somebody randomly put them on a list, that they've taken them through a process. And we spend so much energy on our vendor list, and I actually like to call them partner companies. And the reason why I say partner companies is because we're partnered. We're partnered to actually make that day come alive. But they have to have been existing business on Oahu for a minimum of 5 years, that they have to have a response time that's within 24 hours, that their social media doesn't have to be flawless, because actually that's not real. But right. That you're seeing that there is a consistency there where people have fallen in love and feel that I couldn't have done it without you. And that's real. That's not superficial. And those are the things that we're looking at. There's insurance and liability. There is other people who are in their genre. So whether they're a wedding planner or a photographer or videographer, that their actual fellow colleagues will speak highly of them. It needs to be very mutual that they are a good player in this community. And that's how you make it on our preferred vendor list, our partner companies.
And I love that. And I think, just to kind of clarify, right? On your preferred vendor list, your partner list, people or businesses have to be professional. It's not just kind of that base of being professional. They also have to be able to work as a team. I just had a wedding last night with a DJ, and we were kind of chatting, and he was saying, he was kind of newer to the industry. And he said, what I love is being able to help everybody else. The dance floor, we had a small dance floor incident, and he was on the ground trying to fix it. He's like, if the bar needs help carrying, he's like, of course I'm going to help. And to me, right, that teamwork.
That's correct.
It's not that it's his job. It's not that it's required, but if everybody does their job plus a little more, you've elevated so much more. And I think that is the epitome of a good partner list.
Right. It's a team. Not that we want to talk about rain. It's a 4-letter word.
No, right? We don't want to talk about
it. It's a 4-letter word.
It doesn't exist here.
Yeah, we don't like that. But we've been there where there's been a passing shower, or unfortunately it has rained. You want to look around and know that everybody, ultimately, the goal here is to take care of our couple and to take care of their family and friends. And whether that means we all dig in to help move something or shift something, we're all there for it.
Right.
It's not just being human, but being connected. And that, to me, is part of a vendor list, partnered or preferred.
Big picture, when you think about that, it's a well-oiled machine. I know that as a photographer, if I work with another video company that we're not working in sync together, they have no problem stepping in front of my camera. Or, for example, if I'm a bad actor, I'm stepping in front of their video camera. When you're not working in concert, the client is unfortunately the person who is impacted and is affected. And that's something that I think, especially when we work at your properties, when I step on foot there, I always know that everything is going to go well. Even if everything isn't going well, we're not saying the R word again, but you know that it'll all work out.
Absolutely. I think that also comes from a level of confidence and comfort. Because we are partnered, because we are working together, there is a sense of pride and there's a sense of that ownership. I want our partner companies to be a part of us and vice versa. Listen, I need to be very honest. You bring a set of skills that I don't have on my payroll. You're too expensive.
I'm not cheap.
But I will tell you that that's what actually makes our property even that much more elevated. Birds of a feather. We're selling an event of a lifetime that's going to create a core memory for someone. We only get one chance. And so the reality is bring your best. And when you do that, you want them to be just as proud of not only their skills and their talent, their artistry, but where they're doing it. And I think that if we get to be that canvas, that platform for it, more power to all of us.
One thing that I love about working on the Marriott properties, especially those luxury resorts like the Royal Hawaiian, it's we can count on your staff. You know, the team is exceptional. So again, we're doing this dance. And again, I know you talked about sports and basketball, and I have no idea what you were talking about, but I'm thinking just teamwork, right, in general. And so if we have a great photographer, a great wedding planner, a great florist, you know, all of these vendors, to also be able to rely on your team, I'm looking out for the client, and I know that your team is as well. So if I'm looking at the chairs and they're not perfectly aligned, I know that I can talk to your team without fear and letting them know, hey, it's a little crooked, or hey, the bride wanted 100, not 120 chairs. Can we adjust? And I know we all have the client's best interest, and they're going to do it without question.
Absolutely, Tessa. This was really cute, right? We were talking about this earlier. Being partnered also gives you the ability to speak openly and honestly. That actually elevates what we're doing. You have a different perspective than I do, and that's a good thing.
Right.
So that actually, if you get all of these different perspectives looking out for the betterment of our couple, why wouldn't we want to listen? Why wouldn't we want to actually make sure that this is a safe place for you to actually express those ideas, those expectations? And it's our job to then feel that, embrace it, discuss it. And you can only do that with somebody who you are comfortable with and partnered. And that is really kind of the crux of why we do it. You want to get past the informality, the unsured part of, am I going to step on someone's toes? Ultimately, you're doing that because you want us to look good too. And we both want to do this because we want to do well for our couple.
That is exactly my point, is everything, you know, and I think, you know, so Stuart and I had a conversation before the episode, and I have said some things to him where, again, I think everyone here, all listeners know I'm very honest.
You are.
And, you know, I think I walked out of that conversation, I'm like, is Stuart mad? Did I say too much? But truly, I think he knows that everything I say, I have the best intention for my clients, which again, he has as well. So our common goal is, how do we make our clients have the best experience ever? And I think by having this relationship together, he knows that my best interest is in my client, and he just wants that too.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And we're being synergistic, right? We're actually looking at that opportunity and then kind of tearing it down to build it back better. And that's the only way that you elevate the experience. That's our goal.
All right, really quickly, for all of our listeners who maybe haven't really thought about what is a vendor list, can we just talk about that real quick, just dissect that really quick? There is something called a preferred vendor list that a lot of venues have, right? It's the preferred companies that they like working with, or as you say, partner companies. Mm-hmm. But there's also something that's an approved vendor list. Okay, so I guess I'm going to just kind of break this down real simply. A lot of times, in order to actually step on property at a hotel or a venue, a private estate or whatever, there are minimum requirements that you need to have in order to conduct business.
That's correct.
So let's talk about that. Like what happens when you work off of a preferred or approved vendor list? Like, what guarantees are you actually getting with that?
Okay, well, there's a clear line between approved and preferred.
Yeah.
Approved means that you've got everything. You check the box, right? You have the insurance. You are a legitimate business. This isn't your side hustle or your hobby, that you're legitimately in there. So then you're approved. But that doesn't mean that you are preferred. Preferred means that the location has a preference to use you. So there are some people who are approved, may not be preferred. And I like to take it one step further. Preferred actually does fulfill, according to the venue, what their requirements are. And I shared with you what ours is, with the insurance, with the response time, with the social media, and actually endorsements within the actual genre on which they work. But, and I also have to like you.
Very important.
But no, let's be really honest. The part that I take beyond the preferred is the partnered. What we're doing today is a really great example. You are passionate about what you do. Your career doesn't necessarily define who you are, but it's a part of you. You've worked really hard at your craft. You are passionate about what you do, whether it's photography or videoing or creating floral or leading people in organizing. And I think that knowing that that is a part of you is a plus and a half for us. And that's the difference for me between preferred and actually partnered. We are partnered with people who are passionate about what they're doing. It's a part of them. They are very serious about what they do, but they bring that science and they bring that artistry, and they've combined it really well.
Can I jump in as the devil's advocate? Like, I love playing this role, but what would you say to someone who says, "Oh, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. I have a preferred vendor list. I want to bring in whoever I want. I love this photographer, that's from Utah or Colorado or whatever." What would you say to that client?
Well, doing it for 30 years, and we've always got great examples. But if you were to particularly tell me there's this photographer in Utah that's going to come in, because I absolutely love their work. Our partner company actually can save you time, they know our property like the back of their hand. If you only have 30 minutes between your ceremony's end and the entrance of your room, and you really want to capture the sunset and additional photographs, that photographer is not going to be able to maneuver through our property like our partnered company, like our partner photographer. They're going to take a photograph and there's going to be a fire extinguisher in the back or an exit sign. Yeah. And you're going to know, Joseph, that that's not the place that you want to do that. And this is where I said science and artistry. As a preferred partnered company, when you come in there, you look at our hallways and our space from a different view. And it's because you haven't been there once. It's because you've been there often. You're there all the time. And for me, hooray, that's a win.
And having a venue like the beautiful Moana Surfrider, a lot of times the ceremonies start a little later. We're really working against time before sunset. If you have a photographer who isn't familiar with the way the timing works there, and you can't get those photos done and run out there for sunset, you're going to miss the best part of Hawaii.
Absolutely, yeah.
So working with partners just makes it that much better.
Tessa, that's absolutely correct, right? I mean, and we don't need to talk about that. And that's the other part. We're not wasting anyone's time. We already know that. We also know that the Moana being a historic hotel, 1901, it's more than 120 years old.
Not bragging or anything.
Yeah, correct. Right? But, there's my plug. But I will wind up saying there's some unique particulars that come with it. Loading in, getting out to the lawn. Those things actually take time. There's a finesse that comes with it. If I look over at you, Tessa, I don't need to explain that. Joseph, if I look at you and you think about the grand staircase that's there or the big, huge banyan tree, you know how to maneuver through that entire property. We don't even need to talk about it. But if you tell me that you're going to bring in someone from Utah, my first questions are, have they even been here? Mm-hmm. Do they know what they're up against?
That's so important because actually as a photographer, I can tell you, and I've shot all over the planet, I can tell you lighting is such a key thing. And like a lot of times on a wedding day, we are in that moment, problem solving. It is so sunny. Our couple's melting. Where do we shoot at? It is raining. Where do we shoot
Absolutely.
at? And knowing the property inside and out where you're like, okay, there is this grand staircase. Oh, there is, these amazing columns and like, or at sunset, how do we get out to the sunset pictures and stuff? Having that intrinsic knowledge when you are there, you're making split second decisions. You don't have to be doing all of like reinventing the wheel. You already know. I think that's huge.
And I think that also comes from trust, right? Yeah. So when I have a couple, we all building relationships with our couples, right? That's the dance that we do when we're being considered. And that's the level of which a couple feels that they can trust you. A preferred or a partner company list actually should be a way to help endorse that they've endeavored in this. You should trust that we're looking out for your best interests. If we've created and curated a list, there should be energy and effort behind it. Sadly, some places haven't. And that's where it really has damaged or hurt what we try to do. But for the most part, I feel that that actually already should show you that there is some effort and care, responsibility behind what we're going to produce for you. And you should feel that that responsibility and trust, those people on that list feel just the same way.
I just read this story online about a couple who had booked their videographer, and that videographer was actually on the hotel's not vendor list, but on the hotel property's ban list.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So I guess this is a really good example of like why you would want to work off of a hotel vendors list. How would you even know who is on a blacklist? Do you guys have a blacklist?
Yeah, we do have people that we've experienced in the past, and not by our choice, but that they've come onto the property and that we've experienced things that are just not acceptable.
Like what? What kind of happens in the wedding universe?
Well, we've all seen it, right? Somebody's late.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that adage: if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Right.
So we have to be early. And if you're late, pack up, go home. You know, you've missed it. Like you only get one kiss. You only get one sunset. You miss that. Why were you here? So I think that those are some of the things that did that sound brutal? But I mean,
not at all.
No, I mean, because
I agree.
I have to turn and look at the couple and say, we missed it. Is that acceptable? It's not. Those are where we're having dialogues, right? I think one of the best pieces of advice is hire a wedding coordinator, a professional wedding planner. And the reason why you want to do that is because they are going to help you make those determinations, because sometimes the venues aren't a part of that conversation. We might be on the receiving end after you've already committed, signed off on a contract. For a lot of us in the community of partnered companies, we're having those dialogues. It's us having a cup of coffee and say, guess what happened this weekend? Right. And it's not us gossiping, and it's not us being, a little shady. We're actually doing that to protect ourselves and protect others.
Because it truly is a reflection of me as a wedding planner, you as a venue.
Absolutely.
If Joseph's 2 hours late, it will affect everyone. He's never late.
Yeah,
He's never late. I'm just saying.
Did you hear the gasp? I'm like, what are you talking about?
I just glanced as an example, guys. Not saying anything bad about him. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know about a wedding coordinator now. Well, okay, so I just want to say this. I think you guys are totally correct on that. Like the hotel's vendor list, the coordinator, I think, again, like the goal for when you're planning a wedding is to filter out all of those bad actors, right? And so you don't want to have somebody who's showing up late. You don't want to have somebody showing up who's drunk, right? Or doesn't have the insurance and isn't allowed to actually.
Oh, absolutely. And I will tell you that is a great indicator to us as well. One of the things that we require is the certificate of insurance from any one of the companies that are coming on property. You don't need to do that with any of our partner companies. They already are on the books with us. So that's one thing already you don't need to worry about. And for some people, that's a little awkward. I'm looking at you for your pictures and for the moments that you captured. And then I'm going to snip that and say, now, can you tell me a little bit about your insurance? Right. Are you covered at $2 million worth of liability? And what's your single instant coverage?
Right.
Like, where did that fall into the picture of capturing our wedding day? And I will tell you, if you're already on our partner company list, we already got it.
Right.
Let's focus in on the fun stuff.
Right. Because nobody wants to be talking about that and dealing with that and making those kind of decisions. Are you a professional business or not? Like, do you have insurance? Let me see your certificate of insurance.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where this is already eliminated. We already did that for you.
Check.
Correct.
Check.
We talk about this all the time. Some venues absolutely require having a professional coordinator. Some venues have packages that include a lot of these services. Can we talk about that? Because I know that sometimes it's packaged together, and this is something that for a lot of couples, it's a really awesome, convenient service to have your coordinator and your florist and your photographer. So let's jump into that. Help our couples understand what a wedding package at a hotel is that includes preferred vendors.
For a lot of our destination, and actually for some of our local weddings as well, this helps guide them. I mean, if I ask my couple, what do you do? And they tell me, I'm a bank teller, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a teacher. quite honestly, planning a wedding is not really in their skill set.
Sure, yeah.
And I'd like to say that this is the only wedding that they're going to have. But let's be honest, that's not something that's a part of their day to day. This helps eliminate some of the uncertainty, the question, and maybe the anxieties that they may have. I'm not saying pick A, B, or C, right? We do have A, B, and C. But the reason why we have that is because these are actually tried and true. They fill people's needs, and we designed it so it makes it easier, not to bamboozle you into one direction or the other, because what you do for your wedding is personal. How you put that imprint on the day is really how you design it. But it still does require perhaps an officiant. It does require music and photographs. So if we know that 90% of the time it needs that, why not write it into a package?
And you guys have packages. So you have wedding packages that actually include like the officiant, the musician, floral, these types of things.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that when we do that, people will take a step back. They'll put their pen to paper and say, you know what, we were already going to get that. Right. That was, well, we already had budgeted for that.
Yeah.
It's now all packaged together. And this is actually something they're used to doing. Again, that whole analogy of a team, right? The package is just a tool that the team uses to get through to the details of making that day unique. Those are us to help escalate and move forward. That's what really the packages are doing.
And honestly, I think a lot of times what's really helpful is I have couples that are so indecisive, and these packages for them, they're like, oh, thank goodness.
Right.
Decisions are made. We're picking again from a top few versus here's 10,000 photographers that you can look through. It's overwhelming for them. So to say, okay, we have to work off this list, and then to narrow down even more, okay, if you have 10 photographers, I get to know you, know your style. Okay, pick these 3. It makes their lives so much easier. They feel like perfect. You know, they just want ease.
Absolutely. And I think that I use the analogy of going into a department store. You don't walk into the department store and they push every product that they have. You have to ask, what are you looking for? What do you need? In this case, we already know you're getting married. So it puts together that for you.
I talk to so many couples that are at the very beginning of the wedding planning process. It is overwhelming. You think, okay, I'm getting married. I got the engagement ring. Everything's going good. And then you're like, venue, coordinator. Then you go through that whole litany of, it's a huge list of things. How do I find an officiant? You know, how do I find that florist? How do I, you know, like, and I think that sometimes those hotel packages, just like they make your wedding planning happen with such ease.
Yeah, there's paralysis.
Yeah.
Right? It all of a sudden gets stuck. This is kind of the thing that pushes that forward. People need help. And that's what we're here for. Honestly, if a couple feels that, you're not the only one. That's the reason why we did create it. 9 times out of 10, people, after they make a decision, like we're going to go to Hawaii, or we're going to get married at the Royal, or we're going to do the reception at the Sheraton, they stop. And you see it, Tessa, all the time. Right? Like you're like, wow, I haven't heard from them for a couple of weeks. Right?
Yeah.
And you know that actually they may be talking about it as they drive to the movies, or maybe they've just felt like, oh, we got to a plateau. And now, oh gosh, do we dig in now to make those next set of decisions? This actually just helps that move forward very easily.
Agree. And it's called analysis paralysis.
Correct.
I didn't know that.
Too much information.
It happens a lot. I see it all the time with my couples. So again, like you said, these packages sometimes just give them the push they need. It's easy.
Correct.
So Stuart, you know, being a partner vendor, I think as a wedding planner is so important, especially when I'm working with high-end venues like the Marriott, like the Royal Hawaiian. The reason being is because we have this established relationship. We know, again, we have a level of trust. We know the venue. We know the menus. We know the catering managers. We know the capabilities of what they can and cannot do. When I'm talking about the Royal Hawaiian, for example, and my couples are talking about late night snacks, I always will bring up, I'm like, did you have the cheese pizza with truffle on it?
Right.
It's amazing. You know, and people are like, I never thought about that. I had no idea that existed. And I have photos from past weddings that I've done that I can show them and say, we did a pizza cutting instead of a cake cutting, you know? So there's so many things. It's on my website. they can take a look. So for me, I have this knowledge that I think really helps me sell to my client and give them the biggest experience. I think if we're bringing in other vendors who may not have worked there or are not familiar,
Correct.
they're not going to have that insider knowledge. And I think that is such a huge win, right? For you, for me, and the client. We're all living our best lives when we know everything about all we can.
Tessa, you're absolutely right, because you do have that experience. And we rely on that. It goes both ways, right? You knowing our product is probably a better endorsement than me talking about my product, right? Because I represent the hotel. So why wouldn't I speak well of my truffle pizza?
Right.
But when it comes from you, it's the unexpected. Ultimately, the reason why you're telling them is not so that you can sell for the hotel a pizza with truffle oil, but because it's actually amazing. And that's ultimately where we're going. Again, right? We're talking about building that trust and understanding what we're doing is a complete circle. I know enough about what you're doing and you know enough about me. We stay in our lanes, but we do overlap. That's the amazing part. That's really what we're working for.
Okay, Stuart, we started out the show. I want to hear your craziest story of like a vendor gone wild, like somebody who wasn't on your list, that wasn't following the rules. You know, I guess in this wedding universe, we always see and hear different things. Like, what can you share? Is there anything you can share about your 30 years of experience in this universe?
This is actually within the last 2 years after the pandemic.
Yes. Okay.
And it's recent and it flipped me out. The couple wanted to have a luau experience. They wanted to surprise everyone with fire knife dancers.
Uh-huh.
This is the difference between approved and preferred. COI, the certificate of insurance, reputable actual luau and fire knife troupe. They asked 2 people to come up and put fire on their mouth.
Oh, no.
And I kid you not, I was like, did I hear that correct? Like, did he just ask some random person in the wedding party to come up and touch the flaming fire knife to his mouth?
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, short of me running out there and saying, absolutely not,
Yeah.
then was we really on the side were waving our hands like, don't do it.
Right,
Don't do
right.
it. Because they were going to let them.
Oh, my gosh.
And you just talked about a blacklist.
Yeah.
We have them on our blacklist.
Well, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, like, that's going to go viral on Instagram.
Not only that,
like,
they singed off their lips.
Yeah. You used to have a mustache.
At my cousin's wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm a spokesperson now for cover-up makeup.
Oh, my gosh. And in the same vein, I have my own story. And this isn't something that happened, but it's a story that I'm familiar with. There was a wedding where they brought in their DJ. The DJ set up all these cool lights and stuff, but didn't have them secured. One of the lights actually fell down and hit one of the guests.
Oh, my goodness.
Who happened to be a professional fashion model. And she could no longer work because she has this big scar on her face. And if you think about that, oh my gosh, like, did that company have insurance?
Right.
You know, like what would happen if that's someone that you brought in, you, the client, brought in, and they didn't have all those insurances? You're kind of screwed.
Right. And that's anxieties, right? That's really, you only have one moment. And not just because it's a wedding, but we only have one moment to make those kind of decisions that actually could impact us, both positive or negative. And that's kind of a freak out, right? Like you go back and you can't rewind that.
Right.
You know?
Well, Stuart, thank you so much for being on our show today. Tessa and I have had the privilege of working with your properties for many years. We are so fortunate to have made your cut to be on your preferred partner list. Before we end for today, could you share for all of our listeners a little bit about the properties that you manage? I know for me, the gems for me, when I see this client is booking the Royal Hawaiian or the Moana Surfrider, we are like, this is going to be an epic wedding. So share a little bit about the properties and what you can share with our listeners.
I'm so proud of where I work. Actually, it's really not work. It's where I go and have fun. It's oceanfront. It's so picturesque and so beautiful. And I think many times we forget how beautiful Hawaii is. The Moana Surfrider and the Royal Hawaiian are the only 2 historic hotels here on Oahu. One is 127 years and one is 97. and they are absolutely stunning. I tell people, and this is maybe my elevator speech, my 5 seconds between the floors. It's like going to Paris and not getting a photograph of the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
When you come here to Hawaii, when you're on the lawn for the Royal Hawaiian and to see Diamond Head and the beach and the surfers, isn't that why we want to be here in Hawaii? Mm-hmm. I look at that and I stand at the Diamond Lawn at the Moana Surf Rider and hear the ocean and feel the breeze. And I'm like, this is really the quintessential idea of being married on a beach. We're right there. And I think that expectation is fulfilled. And if anything, not just fulfilled, but elevated and completed. It completes the picture. And I feel so lucky and blessed to represent those two properties as well as our two Sheraton properties with massive space that can accommodate the largest local weddings of 500 to 800 people. And those are totally different ends of the spectrum. And to be able to represent that, I think is a privilege and an honor.
I have chicken skin, Stuart. You just make these properties sound so good. I love the way you can sell it. I want to thank you again for being on. We're so honored to have you. You brought such a wealth of knowledge and really nailed those analogies other than that basketball one, which I have no idea what we're talking about to this minute.
It's teamwork. It's teamwork.
That's all you need to think about.
I'm all about teamwork. Yes,
correct.
Everything else, spot on.
That's correct.
But I appreciate our partnership. I appreciate you coming on. For everybody else, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you back here soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.